Good morning, children. We have seen, firstly, we're sorry that yesterday the video could not be uploaded because of certain technical issues. So, where we were was that we were talking about why the power sharing agreement has been worked out by different democracies in their own different fashions, which has suited their political systems and their political cultures. Okay, and of course, their own social way of life as well. But you have to understand that all that has been kind of facilitated by one of the very important underlying facts, which is that all these countries are democracies, and in a democracy you have to pay attention, you have to be sensitive to the needs and desires and aspirations of all the sections of the society, not just that the section or the constituency which happens to be a majority constituency, but even a constituency which could be constituting just probably 1% of the country's population. Even there you have to, because in the democracy is all about the will of the people. The whole state machinery works in the name of people. Okay, it is not about the prime minister works because the people elect him to work that way. The ministers, the cabinet ministers, all of them are ultimately accountable to the people of the land, and that is what that is what a democracy is about. Of course, democracy has its own flaws, but then as once Winston Churchill said, yes, I know that democracy is not the best way, but tell me of another one, right? So, in spite of whatever the flaws are, that remains the best alternative for governance around the world. So, coming to the second point, that power can be shared among governments at different levels. We had already seen that at a horizontal level, that is the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive, all of them have equal powers and are equally important in their own different ways, right? So, coming to the next point, that is power can be shared among governments at different levels. A general government for the entire country and the governments at the provincial or regional level. Such a general government for the entire country is usually called federal government. So essentially, India has a federal form of government whereby you have a union government and you also have state governments. Now, whereby the union government is headed by the prime minister of the country and would have his own cabinet ministers, and the state government, as you know, is headed by the chief minister, who also has his own cabinet, which assists him in governing the state. So, both these state governments and the central government have their own powers, which are distributed and divided. But of course, union government or the central government is more powerful of the two, and all the states have to ultimately listen to the central government. That is what the system there is in India. And unlike a system whereby, for example, United Kingdom, whereby the prime minister happens to be responsible for everything that happens within United Kingdom, they do not have a system of a regional governor or a regional chief minister, something like that. Because in India, say for example, if you have issues related to roads or water or electricity, you would get in touch with your local government, your mantri, the local mantri, or the chief minister, right? You would not directly approach the prime minister कि मेरे मोहल्ले में बत्ती नहीं आ रही. But the point is, because you have a federal form of government, but in a unitary form of government where there is only one union government, okay, they would be responsible for everything that happens within the country and outside it. Okay, so they would be responsible for waging wars against the neighbors. They would also be responsible for having good relations with United States of America or Russia for that matter, and they would also be responsible for the sanitation of the localities within their own country. So because they only have a unitary form of government, so they would be responsible for everything that happens within those geographies, unlike in India or in even in United States for that matter, whereby Trump heads the federal government. He is the president of United States of America. But then all the other 50 states have their own governors. In India, we call them chief ministers, they call them governors. And they are responsible for the regional government and the regional issues that directly affect the people of those respective states. It could be Texas, it could be Washington, it could be Dakota, North Dakota, South, any state for that matter. So that is how it works. And normally, students, the federal form of government is very popular among the countries which have a massive population and have huge geographies. Countries which are very small, they do not normally need federal governments. Of course, they have some of them are there, but then normally 1%, that is one person who is known as the prime minister, is more or less responsible for everything. Unlike a country which has huge geography, has millions and millions of people, then it becomes very difficult for just the prime minister to be responsible. Just imagine Mr. Modi responsible for the sanitation work in Tripura, from Tripura to Rajasthan, and from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari. It would be impossible. No prime minister, however, even if he works 24 by 7, 365 days a year, would be able to satisfy us. So that is why we have a federal form of government with chief ministers. So, coming to the third point, which is power may also be shared among different social groups, such as the religious and the linguistic groups. Linguistic groups would mean those about different languages. Now, community government in Belgium is a good example of this arrangement. In certain countries, there are constitutional and legal arrangements whereby socially weaker sections and women are represented in the legislature and administration. Like even in India, for that matter, we have this system, as you know, that there are a lot of constituencies in India where only a certain section of and the people belonging to certain sections of the population, the oppressed class and the scheduled caste, and there could be certain seats that could be reserved for Christians, there could be certain seats that could be reserved for any particular section of the population, and that is why it is said that it is among different social groups. But this type of arrangement is meant to give space that's the last paragraph here, give space in the government and administration to diverse social groups who otherwise would feel alienated from the government. This method is used to give minority communities a fair share in power. Students, those seats are reserved because you have to understand that otherwise, say for example, the kind of demography that is there in India, if I'm sorry, if you do not give that, if all the seats have Hindus and Muslims as the only people who would be contesting elections, then it would become very difficult for the Sikhs to become to get elected from places like Uttar Pradesh or anywhere for that matter. They would keep only getting elected from Punjab, and then what happens is that the merit thing takes a back seat. Then it is, of course, a democracy is about numbers, then but then it would become only about numbers. It would not become something about incorporating all the different sections of the society and bringing all of them on the same platform and working together, because that is what is the real ethos and the spirit of democracy is. So that's what we are saying, that we reserve certain seats, whether in state legislatures or for Lok Sabha, so that we can ensure that we can work with the different sections of the population and within different diverse and cultural groups. But you also have to understand one thing, students, it is a two-way thing. Thus the government cannot just say that, say for example, if you take a case for Dehradun, the government just cannot say that Dehradun would be a reserved constituency for only Christians. No, and only Christians can stand here for elections, and the others can't. Students, you have to understand that democracy is a two-way process. Of course, from the government side, it is easy through Election Commission of India to ensure this, that yes, Dehradun from now onwards only has Christian candidates, whether when it comes to the state legislature or, for that matter, the parliament. But with the people of Dehradun, if the people of Dehradun are not okay with that idea, right, they also have to accept that yes, Now, from Dehradun, now onwards, no Sikh would stand for the election. We agree for that. No Hindu would stand for the elections. We agree with it. No Muslim would stand for the elections. We are okay with that idea. No Buddhist, no one except Christians. Right now, this is something which the people of the land have to accept. This is what an idea which the people of the land have to embrace, and only then can the power sharing agreement work. It cannot be just through changing the laws and bringing about legislation that the system works. Power sharing would not work unless, that is what is democracy is about, unless it gets the cooperation, it gets the full backing of the citizens. Otherwise it will not work. It would just it would just get punctured on the way. Now, coming to the last point, power sharing agreements arrangements can also be seen in the way political parties, pressure groups, and movements control or influence those in power. In a democracy, the citizens must have freedom to choose among various contenders for power. In contemporary democracies, this takes in the form of competition among different parties. Such competition ensures that the power does not remain in one hand. In the long run, power is shared among different political parties that represent different ideologies and social groups. Again, coming to the basic nature of democracy, students, that no one can remain in power forever if the people are not satisfied with the performance, and if the people are not satisfied with whatever that political party or that pressure group is, the way they are operating. You have to understand that in the early 50, 60 years, the Congress was in power after independence, right? They were always in power, of course, in center all the time, whether it was just that the leaders kept changing, but the party was always in power. Whether you talk about Pandit Nehru or Lal Bahadur Shastri or Mrs. Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi or Mr. Narasimha Rao, all of them were congressmen. It was only later that BJP ultimately overtook them, and now today BJP is very firmly there in the seats of power. But why has it happened? It has happened because the people of the country now want BJP to rule, and the people of this country want Congress to sit in the opposition, because something has gone wrong for opposition, for Congress party, and the people don't want to see them and their leadership anymore. So guys, you have to understand the reasons could be many, but the point is the people who have decided that BJP should be there and the Congress should be out. Tomorrow, if the if the people of this country feel in a different way, then we would see the whole political spectrum again undergoing a radical shift. So this is what we are talking about. The power sharing is about, yes, political parties are there, pressure groups are there, different public movements keep happening, but then power sharing is done because we have a democracy, and in a democracy, of course, the fortunes can change, our attitudes keep changing all the time, and democracy does not work without the participation and consent, and if you can say, the complete understanding of the people and the citizen of the country. So that is why we also do power sharing, just so as to ensure that yes, that harmony or that system keeps working efficiently. Thank you. This chapter has ended, and we would have the questions, students. I'll give you the questions tomorrow for this, and you can give me the assignment after the test on Monday is over. Thank you.